Good morning, good afternoon and good evening to the latest webinar of the TSU, the Technical Support Unit of the NAMA facility. My name is Ash Sharma. I am a Senior Advisor to the TSU and will be moderating today's webinar. We are very pleased to see the high number of participants. More than 350 colleagues from all over the world have registered. So thank you all very much for joining us and a very warm welcome to each of you. This is the third of a series of webinars to provide information on the NAMA facility and its call for projects. Our first webinar on the 20th of June had a focus on transformational change and financial mechanisms. During our second webinar on the 27th of July, we introduced the NAMA facility's fourth call. Both webinars can be viewed on our website. For those who have not participated in these webinars, we recommend you to watch those because they contain important information on the facility's philosophy, processes and expectations which constitute the basis for the fourth call. The objective of today's webinar is to provide further clarity on application procedures and to support those who are currently preparing an application for the fourth call or planning to do so. The fourth call is open until the 31st of October 2016. On the following slide, you can see the TSU colleagues who are involved in today's webinar. From left to right, you see Tina, Yanka, Jutta, myself and Fanny. Tina and Fanny are in charge of the technical functioning of the webinar, and Yanka and Jutta will guide us through the content of this webinar and answer your questions in the Q&A sessions. I will be moderating the webinar. Before going into details, my colleague Fanny will guide you through some technical aspects of the webinar.
Thank you, Ash, and hello everybody. First, let me give you a quick introduction to the control panel of the webinar, which you can see here on the right of the PowerPoint slide. I will also show these using my mouse. You have several settings. First, you can hide the control panel. Second, due to the high number of participants, we have put all participants on mute and you will not be able to unmute yourself. Third, you can view the webinar in the full screen using this button. This could be useful as the sessions will be accompanied by a presentation. Fourth, you can also adjust the language of the control panel using the globe, which you can find on the top of the control panel. You have a question tab where we ask you to write down the questions that you have throughout the session. You type in the question window that you find in the control panel. We, the webinar hosts, will be the only ones that can see it. We will answer the questions in the Q&A sessions, so please submit them beforehand. In case that there are more questions coming up than we can answer today, we will try to answer those questions after the webinar and publish them on our website, together with the recording of this webinar. I will now hand over the word back to Ash for a brief introduction to the NAMA facility.
Thank you, Fanny. Let's first have a brief look at today's agenda. Just now, as the first part of today's webinar, I will provide you with a short introduction to the NAMA facility and its fourth call and point out the main changes to previous calls. In the second part, Yanka will pick up some FAQs and clarifications related to the fourth call. The third part of this seminar, Jutta will showcase two examples of the NAMA facility's current portfolio of NAMA support projects, or NSPs. This is to illustrate the idea of transformational change and institutional setup in the NAMA support projects. In the final part, Yanka will guide you through the outline template and discuss some technicalities related to it. We will also have time for some Q&As. So let's turn to the first part of today's agenda, a short introduction to the NAMA facility and its fourth call. The NAMA facility supports developing countries and emerging economies in implementing ambitious NAMAs. NAMAs can function as an important vehicle to implement nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, under the Paris Agreement. NAMAs are voluntary climate protection measures undertaken by developing countries and emerging economies which are embedded in national strategies for low-carbon development. The NAMA facility was established by the BMUB, the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, and BASE, which is the UK Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, previously the Department of Energy and Climate Change, or DEC, in 2012. Last year, the European Commission, represented by DG Climate and DevCo, and the Danish Ministries of Energy, Utilities and Climate, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, joined the NAMA facility as additional donors. Representatives of these donor institutions are members of the board of the NAMA facility, which is the central decision-making body. The donors of the NAMA facility have made available a total of more than 260 million euros for support to date. The TSU, the Technical Support Unit, is the NAMA facility's secretariat and is responsible, among other things, for organizing the calls for NAMA support projects. We are based in Berlin, from where we are speaking today, but we are mostly using virtual communication channels, such as this webinar, to make the information on the NAMA facility accessible from all over the world. The NAMA facility provides funding to NAMA support projects that have the potential to catalyze transformational change towards low-carbon development. As there is only limited funding available, the NAMA facility focuses its support on the most ambitious and transformational NSPs. For identifying these, the NAMA facility organizes calls for NSPs. In the previous calls, 14 NAMAs have been selected for support for their implementation. You can find these on our website. 2 of the selected NSPs will be discussed later on in today's webinar. The NSPs provide a combination of financial and technical measures to support the most ambitious parts of sector-wide NAMA implementation. These NSPs have a duration of between 3 to 5 years and can receive a funding volume of 5 to 20 million euros each from the NAMA facility. In line with the objectives of the facility, key selection requirements for NSPs are that they should be ready for actual implementation of mitigation actions, and that they should be ambitious in terms of mitigation potential, financial leverage, and potential for transformation. We want to point out that the NAMA facility does not have any regional or sectoral focus. So, let's have a look at the 4th call for NAMA support projects. We assume here that most of you are aware of the 4th call, and therefore just a brief introduction. Donors have made available an additional 60 million euros for the 4th call. The 4th call was launched on the 4th of July and is open until noon, the 31st of October 2016. In the light of lessons learned from previous calls, changes in the 4th call will aim at simplifying the application procedures, enlarging the circle of applicants, and strengthening the readiness and financial structuring of NAMAs. As we cannot cover all aspects relevant to the 4th call, let me quickly guide you to the most relevant sources of information, which are all available on our website under Calls for Projects. The NAMA facility's General Information Document is a central source of information for the 4th call, where you will hopefully find answers to most of your questions. At this moment, my colleague Tina is sending a link to the General Information Document via the chat function of this webinar. The application documents for the 4th call, called NSP Outline, Template and Annexes, are available via the 2nd link that Tina is sending you in the chat function. In the last part of this webinar, My colleague Janka will take a closer look at these application documents. As previously mentioned, we have already held 2 webinars, both of which are available on our website. Tina is sending you the links in the chat. The first webinar was on the NAMA facility's understanding of the link between transformational change and financial mechanisms. The second webinar was dedicated to a 4th call introduction, including the selection criteria and process. We will not repeat the content of these webinars, so we would strongly encourage you to have a look at them as well. Last but not least, the TSU is offering the opportunity to submit questions or requests for clarifications via our NAMA facility mail address. These are collected, generalized, and at 3-weekly intervals, clarifications are published on the NAMA facility's website. This way, we want to ensure a transparent clarification process and provide everyone interested with a chance to see the responses. The 3rd round of clarifications will be published in 2 days on the NAMA facility website. Tina has also sent you a link to the clarification notes via the chat. The NAMA facility has implemented 3 calls for NSPs so far. We've drawn important lessons learned from these calls and have improved our procedures for the 4th call accordingly. Here is an overview of the main changes. We have widened the range of applicants eligible for submitting outlines to legal entities which fulfill certain capacity requirements. This new feature is that organizations that may not be eligible to implement a project, for example due to a lack of experience, are still encouraged to hand in an outline. This way we hope to broaden the range of good ideas submitted to the facility. We have also clarified the institutional setup of the NAMA facility by eliminating the term delivery organization that has previously caused some misunderstandings. We will revert to this issue a bit later. The new outline template now allows a consistent presentation of the NSP. At the same time, a stronger emphasis is put on the barrier analysis, the business model, and the financial mechanism. Once an outline is selected by the donors of the NAMA facility for further elaboration, it receives financial support for the detailed preparation phase, or DPP for short. The ultimate purpose of the DPP is to prepare a fully fledged proposal for NSP implementation. Based on the proposal, the donors will take the decision on funding the NSP implementation. In the 4th call, the NAMA facility allows for a more thorough DPP of up to 18 months on the basis of increased support available, but with a clear cut-off deadline. This is to signal that there is sufficient time and funds for a detailed preparation, while we still expect a certain level of readiness. The enhanced support for the NAMA facility for the DPP includes a pool of financial experts. NSPs can draw from this expert pool to engage in their DPP and in particular for developing their financial mechanisms. These services will become part of the DPP budget of the respective NSP. The NAMA facility has engaged in the pre-selection of the pool to ensure the availability of high-level expertise and to avoid delays for tendering procedures for NSPs. The expert pool is meant as a service offer to NSPs. They are, however, free to select and engage other qualified experts. There is an enhanced competitive element at the end of the DPP. The donors of the NAMA facility will take decisions on funding NSP implementation semi-annually. Hence, proposals can be submitted by months 6, 12, or at the latest 18 months after starting their DPP. Depending on the quality of NSPs submitted in the fourth call, it is expected that more NSPs receive support for their DPP than can be supported in the actual implementation. Therefore, the competition occurs through the readiness of the NSP. Proposals of sufficient quality submitted within 6 months have a higher likelihood to receive immediate funding than those submitted after 18 months. Now that I've presented the main changes, let's look at the timeline for the fourth call. In the call, national ministries and qualified applicants are invited to submit their outline via email to the NAMA facility at the latest noon 31st of October 2016. In the period from November till early spring, all outlines submitted are checked on their formal eligibility, and then a team of external assessors will conduct an initial desk assessment on the ambition and feasibility of the proposed NSPs. New to the assessment process is the fact that shortlisted NSPs will undergo an on-site assessment in late 2016 and the beginning of 2017. This serves to verify the desk assessments as well as the national commitment, to clarify issues and to finalize the DPP concept. The external assessors will then provide funding recommendations to the NAMA facilities donors. A donor decision on funding NSPs for the detailed preparation phase is expected in early spring 2017. Once the donor decision is taken, selected NSPs move to the detailed preparation phase. The legal entity designated as applicant or co-applicant in the outline will be contracted for the DPP. During this detailed preparation phase, NSPs are expected to develop a fully fledged proposal within a maximum of 18 months. As mentioned, the NAMA facility donors decide on funding the implementation of NSPs semi-annually, that is in spring and autumn 2018, as well as in spring 2019. Once approved by the board, NSPs can then go into full implementation. The selection criteria for NSPs have been discussed in our previous webinars, so we will not go into these again. These criteria are also the basis for the external assessments. Let me just remind you that they comprise formal eligibility criteria as well as ambition and feasibility. All are composed of a number of sub-criteria which you will find detailed in the general information document. That was a short introduction to the NAMA facility and its fourth call for NSPs. Since its launch, we have received a substantial number of questions to the fourth call. We want to dedicate the next part of this webinar to discuss some of these questions. My colleagues Jutta and Janka will answer these questions. Please note that all questions are also addressed in the clarification notes published on the NAMA facilities website. So, here are the first questions. Janka, people are asking whether the UK decision on Brexit has had any influence on the NAMA facility, and in particular the fourth call.
Hello to everybody, and thank you, Ash, for the first question. Well, in fact, the UK support to the NAMA facility is a bilateral commitment and not related to its membership in the European Union. The UK government continues its partnership with the other donors on the NAMA facility and provides support to developing countries and emerging economies to take ambitious mitigation actions. In short, the UK is fully committed to co-fund the fourth call. As part of the governmental restructuring in the UK, the new department in charge of the NAMA facility is now the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategies, BASE. Respective information has been adapted on our NAMA facilities website.
Thanks, Janka. On the financial mechanisms, there were a couple of questions. First, as the NAMA facility only provides grants, What is meant by financial mechanisms and products?
Here we actually have to distinguish different levels. It is correct that the NAMA facility offers grants to the NSPs. At the NSP level, however, this grant is expected to leverage public and private funds in order to make the best use of the grant funding. The leverage can be achieved by a variety of financial mechanisms and products such as guarantee schemes for commercial loans or soft loan programs. But funding might also be used, for instance, for bridging the phasing out or phasing in of subsidy schemes to promote low carbon technologies. On our website, you will find a dedicated fact sheet on financial mechanisms. Tina is sending you the link in the webinar's chat function to this fact sheet. Also, we would recommend to you checking our first webinar on the link between financial mechanisms and transformational change. In this webinar, our experts had discussed various financial mechanisms.
Okay. If subsidies are considered as a financial mechanism in a NAMA support project, is there a rule for the percentage blend of subsidies, credits, equity, etc.?
As I said before, subsidies could be considered a financial mechanism of an NSP. In this case, it needs to be demonstrated that first, the subsidy scheme does not crowd out commercial finance. Second, it is the most efficient and effective solution for overcoming a certain barrier. And third, that there's a clear phase-out concept for the subsidy or other ways to ensure that the sustainable impact for the financing mechanism is achieved and ensured beyond the NSP's lifetime. The NAMA facility does not set a specific rule for the percentage blend of subsidies, credits, and equity.
Okay, one last question. During the assessment, does the NAMA facility apply any minimum ratio for financial leverage, i.e. between the requested grant from the NAMA facility and mobilized public or private finance?
No, the NAMA facility does not require a minimum financial leverage ratio. However, during the assessment of the outlines, the leverage ratio is taken into consideration in the specific country and sector context.
Okay, thanks a lot, Janka. Now let's turn to questions on eligibility. We've received several questions on what can actually be funded. Jutta, maybe we start with a frequently asked issue. Does the NAMA facility provide funding for the development of a NAMA, and more specifically for the preparation of the outline?
Thank you, Ash. Well, you know that the NAMA facility support targets the implementation of NAMAs. Thus, the answer is no. The NAMA facility does not provide funding for development of NAMAs. This should be sought from other sources. The NAMA facility also does not provide funding for the preparation of NAMA support project outlines. However, as you mentioned before, the NAMA facility does provide funding for the detailed preparation of selected NAMA support projects to elaborate a fully fledged proposal.
Okay, could you also clarify whether NAMA support projects would be eligible that have a bottom-up approach, that is, targeting a whole sector from the grassroots level, or those with a local or subnational approach?
Okay, well, in general, this kind of NAMA support projects are eligible. However, as any other NAMA support project, these kinds of NAMA support projects should be very well embedded within the national policies and sector strategies and should have the government's endorsement. The political and action to transform a sector is seen as an important key for transformational change. The challenge for NSPs is usually to demonstrate that they really have a potential for transformational change.
Here is another issue with regard to eligibility that has been raised for clarification. Will physical investments built with support from the NAMA facility be eligible to earn carbon credits? And related to this, can the exit strategy for NAMA facility support include carbon financing as a means of sustainable financing approach?
Well, we need to ensure the additionality of greenhouse gas reductions and of the donor's contribution to international climate finance. Therefore, while emission certificates or other emission credits could be generated by NSPs, these certificates are not allowed to be traded either during or after the end of the project NSP. Hence, certificates generated with the support from the NAMA facility must be permanently cancelled. And regarding your second question, yes, carbon financing might be considered in the exit strategy for NAMA facility support, but only in the case credits have not been generated with the funding provided by the NAMA facility.
And what do you mean by country of implementation?
Oh, yeah. All countries eligible for ODA funding, ODA funding, are eligible to implement a NAMA support project. The OECD list gives a complete overview of eligible countries.
Okay, thanks for these explanations, Jutta. Before we open the floor to questions that come in from the audience as we talk, there is one further issue I would like to focus the last round of these initial clarifications. It is about who is eligible to apply and the different roles in an NSP. So, Janka, perhaps you can explain once again the differences between an applicant and a co-applicant and maybe provide some examples.
Sure, Ash. Well, we decided to visualize the who is who in the NAMA facility application process to hopefully make it as clear as possible to everyone. So here are the two options for the submission of the NSP outline. Option 1 is that the NSP outline is submitted directly by a national ministry. In this case, the national ministry is the applicant. Due to administrative reasons, the NAMA facility cannot directly contract ministries for the detailed preparation phase. Therefore, the NAMA facility needs a so-called co-applicant, that is, a legal entity that will become the contracting partner for the grant for the DPP, for the detailed preparation phase. The co-applicant needs to comply with a set of capacity criteria as spelled out in the general information document. It could be, for instance, a national or international NGO or foundation, public agencies or development funds, bilateral or international development banks and agencies. There's actually a very wide range of different legal entities you could think of as long as they comply with the capacity criteria. The second option is that the legal entity could also submit the outline itself if it receives sufficient endorsement from the relevant national ministries. In this case, the legal entity would be called the applicant. The legal entity, whether it acts as an applicant or co-applicant, will be the contracting partner for the grant for the DPP. That is to result in a full-fledged proposal to be submitted to the NAMA facility. As the contracting partner, the legal entity will be responsible and accountable for the correct use of grant funding for the DPP.
Okay, but can the legal entity that you were just talking about also be the NAMA support organization?
Oh, yes, sure. The NAMA Support Organization, short NSO, is the contracting partner for the implementation of the NAMA support project. The legal entity taking up this function of the NSO needs to comply with the more demanding capacity requirements than the legal entity that qualifies as the co-applicant and thus the contracting partner for the DPP. These requirements applying for the NSO, for the NAMA support organization, are outlined in Chapter 5 of the General Information document. An entity eligible as NAMA support organization is automatically also qualified as an applicant or co-applicant for the DPP.
Could you provide some examples of these NSOs?
Sure. Examples of NSOs could include at national level, for instance, national development banks or development funds, public utilities, public agencies, foundations, national non-governmental organizations. Or at regional or international level, we are talking about international and regional development banks, United Nations agencies, bilateral and international development agencies, international non-governmental organizations, international foundations, and so on. The NAMA support organization cannot be a private for-profit institution, and as I already said, it needs to fulfill the capacity criteria as specified in the general information document.
Okay, thanks a lot for the explanation, Janka. A number of questions have already been posted while we were talking. Let me quickly remind our audience that questions that come in today, but also written questions to the NAMA facility's email address, will be addressed in clarification notes that the TSU will publish every 3 weeks. The next clarifications will be published in 2 days' time, namely on the 9th of September. Since we want to ensure a transparent and fair call, the TSU will provide clarifications in regard to the interpretation of the General Information Document and application documents, but will not provide any NSP-specific advice on individual NSP concepts or proposed partner structures. So, Janko, here is a question to you. If the NSP foresees the use of revolving financial instruments, can you please clarify the level of detail in the reporting of the financial flows, such as disbursements and possible repayments, from the implementing partner to the final beneficiaries?
Well, the level of reporting needs to ensure that, for instance, an external auditor or evaluator is able to verify that the NAMA facility funding has been used according to the agreed purpose. In the just described case, the respective reporting requirement should be defined in the contractual framework, actually, between the NAMA support organization and implementing partners. The NAMA support organization is then responsible for reporting to the NAMA facility based on reporting templates that we provide. As a rule, these progress reports comprise aggregated information on financial instruments and their leveraging effects.
Another question is on the required stage of preparation of the greenhouse gas baselines and the monitoring, reporting and verification, or MRV system. Do all greenhouse gas calculations and details on the MRV have to be available when submitting the outline?
Well, baseline studies should be part actually of the development of NAMAs, and thus should be part of the readiness activities. So the NAMA facility expects that assumptions and methodologies for greenhouse gas reduction calculations are made transparent at outline stage. If the detailed information is not available yet for a certain country or sector, it could be considered to base assumptions on the data from similar countries where baselines are already available. Same is true for the MRV system. The data would then be further detailed for the country and verified during the detailed preparation phase.
Okay, we will now proceed with the second part of the webinar, which deals with sample projects from the current portfolio that Jutta will present. Please remember to keep sending us your written questions as they arise.
Thanks, Ash. I will present 2 NAMA support projects from our current portfolio to illustrate what a NAMA support project characterizes and how it triggers transformation. However, each NAMA support project is specific with a particular setup that fits into the national context and sector. A good example to showcase how to trigger transformation in the cooling sector is the refrigeration and air conditioning NAMA in Thailand. The cooling sector, which is a subsector of the industrial sector, contributes approximately 20% to Thailand's total emissions. The goal of the NAMA support project is to transform the production and use of refrigeration and air conditioning appliances for both the domestic and commercial sector towards the use of climate-friendly and energy-efficient technologies. The aim is to increase the market penetration of climate-friendly and energy-efficient appliances to about 1.3 million. A reduction of about 1 million tons carbon dioxide annually will be achieved by 2020 through energy efficiency improvements and the use of natural climate-friendly refrigerants. The project strives for a market share of 20%, thus reducing the energy consumption of 1.3 million users. Producers and assemblers of cooling appliances are supported by politically, technically and financially by the NAMA support project in order to reach a change in production towards and the implementation of climate-friendly refrigerants.
And what are the main aspects of the NSP to trigger transformation, and how is the project designed?
Well, the NAMA support project addresses a wider NAMA to increase the energy efficiency in the cooling sector. It is well embedded in the country's policies, for instance, the NAMA roadmap, and it is included in the NDCs, nationally determined contributions. It will enable the Thai government to shape a political and regulatory framework supporting the introduction of climate-friendly and energy-efficient cooling technologies. And it will provide technical and financial means to producers and assemblers to produce, assemble and maintain such technologies. Finally, it supports the market introduction of these technologies. As mentioned before, the financial mechanism is of particular importance to nurture the transformational effect of a NAMA support project. Hence, great attention should be paid to the design and appropriateness of the financial instrument. The Thai NSP financial mechanisms comprises of two elements. First, financial support in form of grant payments for shortlisted producers to convert the production line and to place products in the market. Second, the setup of the RAC NAMA revolving fund. NAMA facility funds are used as seed money. The fund will provide credit lines to partner financial institutions well established in the market, which offer subsidized loans for private and commercial end users willing to invest in energy efficient and climate-friendly cooling appliances.
So how is the cooperation structure designed in order to ensure a successful and sustainable implementation of this NSP?
Well, main characteristics are the involvement of important stakeholders such as ministries and governmental institutions. In this case, implementing partners are the Department of Alternative Energy Development and Efficiency, short DD, and the Office of Natural Resources and Environmental Policy and Planning, in short ONEP. DD is steering the RAC NAMA revolving fund and the Energy Efficiency revolving fund, which complements the RAC NAMA fund. An investment committee staffed by DD and GIZ will steer the fund. The RAC NAMA project management is complemented by a RAC NAMA committee which comprises a financial, a political and a technical working group. The committee coordinates, advises and supports the implementation of the NSP and is staffed by key stakeholders of ministry and governmental institutions.
So to conclude, what are the key aspects of the NSP to foster transformation?
There are several aspects. The supportive political and technical framework conditions shaped by the project. The support is given to the supply as well as to the demand side. The setup of the RAC NAMA revolving fund as a sustainable financial instrument, and finally, the NSP has the potential to trigger actions in the remaining RAC sector. For instance, mobile air conditioning and transport refrigeration.
And so now we move on to our second example.
Thank you, Ash. The Costa Rica low-carbon coffee NAMA is the first NAMA targeting the agricultural sector. Therefore, it is worth to look deeper into the details. The low-carbon coffee NAMA contributes to Costa Rica's goal to be climate neutral by 2021. Coffee production as a subsector employs 8% of the workforce in the country. It is part of the agricultural sector, which is a major part of the Costa Rican economy and the main area of intervention of the National Climate Change Strategy. The NAMA support project aims to transform the whole coffee sector with 50,000 producers on 90,000 hectare land and 266 coffee mills, exporters and roasters by tackling the entire value chain. As a catalyzer for the wider NAMA, the NSP addresses 12% of coffee producers applying the promoted technologies and practices on 25,000 hectare land. As well, 90% coffee mills will apply technologies promoted by the NSP. Successful implementation of instruments will showcase positive economic, social and ecological effects. It will lead to direct emission reductions of about 1 million ton CO2e per year by 2022. Moreover, the competitiveness of Costa Rica's coffee production will be strengthened internationally.
So how does the project expect to achieve these ambitious targets?
Well, the project approach comprises of technical and financial means. Technical measures are awareness raising and capacity building for coffee farmers and coffee mill operators for sustainable low-emission technologies and practices, as well as marketing strategies for cooperatives and coffee mills to help position themselves in the international market. Coffee mills can be assisted to prepare proper investment projects in order to achieve suitable financial support. Financial instruments are, first, a small-scale direct investment subsidy, the so-called fast track, as well as a NAMA fund. This is to refinance loans and to provide partial loan guarantees for regulated and supervised national banks. This will assure the provision of concessional loans with attractive conditions for the coffee sector. In terms of financial ambition, the project aims at mobilizing 2.6 million euro of public and 8 million euro of private finance.
So what would you say is a suitable institutional structure to implement a NSP in such a complex sector that has so many stakeholders?
Well, the NSP established a coordination structure on a national level with clear roles and mandates. All relevant stakeholders are involved to coordinate, manage and/or advise the NAMA support project's implementation. Solid institutional structures and close working relationships in the coffee sector facilitating the implementation of the NSP additionally. Finally, the NSP will work with and strengthen the role of key actors and intermediaries, which prepares the ground for the transformation of the whole coffee sector.
So to conclude, what are the ingredients for transformation employed by this NSP?
Okay, in this case, the application of strategies and measures for a low-carbon coffee production which are acknowledged by the key stakeholders of the whole value chain, which are ministries, producers, cooperatives, mills and other sector institutions. And as well targeting high-quality coffee which ensures the access to differentiated international markets.
Okay, thank you, Jutta. A number of questions have been submitted while you were presenting these two examples. One participant has inquired whether the NAMA facility seeks a thematic diversity in its global portfolio. and thus favors financing issues that have not yet been funded? Or would it be acceptable if NAMA submitted in the fourth call are similar to those of other countries?
Well, as you have said earlier, the NAMA facility does not have a sector-specific focus. Thus, NSPs are not selected based on their thematic focus, but based on their ambition. During the assessment of NSP outlines, the sector relevance and NSP's potential to induce transformational change within the sector is assessed in the individual country context. A NAMA must be country-driven and appropriate in the country context, thus designed individually. As there might be similar mitigation actions appropriate in a number of countries, proposed sectors and even proposed financing mechanisms might be similar across several countries. As a general rule, it is always positive if the proposed NSP incorporates lessons learned under other similar programs, whether they are financed by the NAMA facility or by other sources.
Okay, another participant asks, how long did it take for the RAC NAMA in Thailand to prepare the proposal?
Well, in case of the RAC NAMA, the appraisal phase, or as we now call it, the detailed preparation phase, took about 10 months.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jutta, for your explanations. Now let's move on to the last part of today's webinar. My colleague Janka will invite you to go through the outline template and its annexes. This will be more technical and more relevant to those who will actually elaborate the outline itself and its annexes.
Thank you, Ash. As we did in our last seminar, we will take a closer look at the new outline template and its 5 annexes. In parallel, Tina is sending you once again the link for downloading the application documents via the chat function of this webinar. You may notice that we have revised the template to improve the better opportunity for applicants to tell a coherent story about the NSP, what it wants to do and what it wants to achieve. We would expect that outlines have a maximum of 20 pages or up to 10,000 words plus annexes. The word count in the template itself is meant as a guidance. So the first issue has been already discussed today. On the front page, you insert the applicant, that is the national ministry or legal entity that submits the outline to the NAMA facility. It probably goes without saying that the outline should be submitted electronically by a duly authorized representative of the applicant. This applicant will be the addressee for the communication from the NAMA facility during the outline phase. In the first section of the outline, we expect that the national ministry of the relevant sector or line ministry is named, including a contact person. Secondly, we expect that the ministry responsible for climate change and UNFCCC negotiations supports the NSP and is named as a relevant contact person. Both ministries are expected to provide endorsement letters. In the next section, under co-applicant, the legal entity is to be named that will become the contracting partner for the DPP. We have already talked about this in the second part of today's webinar. Aside from the national ministries, central roles are given to the implementing partners, the already mentioned co-applicant and the NAMA support organization. As regards the letter 2, there's the option to form a consortium as co-applicants and also a consortium as the NAMA support organization if the necessary expertise cannot be provided by a single legal entity. In that case, the consortium must demonstrate that it fulfills the criteria and the lead partner should be identified. Once again, detailed information on the requirements for the co-applicants and NSOs, NAMA support organizations, can be found in the general information document in Chapter 5. Implementing partners need to be identified as well. Implementing partners are key national partners for the implementation aside from the already mentioned ministries. Implementing partners can be, for instance, national development banks, the National Ministry of Finance, a public entity with a specific sector mandate. The core characteristics of implementing partners are that they are existing entities with a specific mandate and a relevant experience for the implementation and operation of the NAMA. The list of implementing partners might be extended if necessary. Last but not least, indicative information on the NAMA support organization should be provided. As I mentioned, we apply more demanding eligibility criteria to the NAMA support organization. NSPs should demonstrate in the outline that they have an idea of which entity could be an appropriate NAMA support organization for the implementation, but no outline will be disqualified in the outline phase for its NAMA support organization selection. Section 2 is where the consistent story of the NSP can be told. The italic text should be understood as a guidance for you for the presentation of the NSP. On this slide, on the left, there are links to helpful tools and documents we have on our website. You can find these tools later by clicking the links in the presentation that we will send around after this webinar. We recommend these tools and guidance as background for the preparation of the outline. I would like to draw your attention to a couple of issues. We have integrated an explicit question on the business model for proposed technologies. We consider a convincing business model for the proposed technologies essential for the broader impacts of the NSPs. Respective information has been missing in many outlines in the past years. In fact, the business model is also important for identifying the right financial support mechanism. Once again, we would like to stress that the sound financial mechanism is a central piece and should be presented as clearly as possible. The NAMA facility focuses on enabling transformative investments. The focus is thus not on pure technical assistance. The NAMA facility considers NAMAs as an implementation vehicle for national determined contributions in the context of the Paris Agreement. Thus, the linkage of the NSP to the national determined contributions is very important and should be demonstrated here. Last but not least, sustainable development co-benefits are seen as an important driver for change in a country. Therefore, co-benefits have been integrated into the information on the embeddedness of the NSP. In section 3 is where you present the ambition of the NSP with regard to its potential for transformational change, financial ambition, and mitigation potential in detail. We strongly recommend considering the monitoring and evaluation guidance and tools provided by the NAMA facility for this. Please note that there's a direct link between the financial ambition from private and public and other donor sources and the financing structure of the NSP as shown in the next section and on the next slide. Here in section 4 of the outline, we would expect to see basically the hard numbers on your financial ambition, at least on what we would consider directly mobilized by the NSP. If you foresee more than one financial mechanism, please also specify them in the table as well and indicate the individual financing source. Make sure that in your cost structure you also include your overheads, possible taxes, expenditures for communication, monitoring, and so on. Note that 1% of the requested NAMA facility funding for implementation shall be reserved for the NSP evaluation. The evaluation budget will be centrally tendered and commissioned for all NSPs. Now that we have gone through the outline itself, let's have a quick look at the annexes that should be submitted together with the outline. As Annex 1, we expect endorsement letters from the national ministries that have been mentioned in the outline. That is, the sector ministry and the ministry responsible for climate change. We would really like to stress that endorsement letters are much more than a formal requirement. They provide an idea on the level of political and possibly also financial commitment of the national political partners. The content of these letters is carefully studied and considered during the assessment of the outline. Endorsement letters should be in English or at least provided with an English translation. Annex 2, the log frame, is a planning instrument for project development that most of you are probably familiar with. It's probably needless to say that the log frame and the main body of the outline should be consistent. The log frame should show all relevant assumptions and risks of the NAMA support project to reach its outputs, outcomes, and impacts. Indicators should refer to the NAMA facility's mandatory core indicators and sector indicators, and include respective target values. In this Annex 3, you are asked to provide information and reference on the legal entity that serves as the co-applicant and is to become the contracting partner for the DPP. This information will be used to assess whether the proposed applicant or co-applicant fulfills the capacity requirements. It is thus very important to provide relevant references and information here. In Annex 4, the concept for the detailed preparation phase should be presented. The detailed preparation phase concept should demonstrate a clear plan of how to get to sound, fully fledged proposal, including questions and issues that still need to be clarified. It should be also identifying central stakeholders for the project preparation, as well as resources and methods needed and applied. The concept should also include a budget and a Gantt chart for the detailed preparation phase. Note that for the first time in the fourth call, the detailed preparation phase concept is also subject to the assessment of the feasibility of the outline. In Annex 5, you are asked to provide information and references on the NAMA support organization. This is seen as indicative information that is consolidated during the on-site assessment and possibly at the very beginning of the detailed preparation phase. So that is the overview of the new outline template with its annexes. It probably goes without saying that only these templates should be used for the applications in the fourth call. You can find these templates on our website under calls for projects. Once again, the reminder, the submission deadline is 31st of October, noon. Please submit the complete outline with all annexes and in English to the NAMA facility's email address.
Okay, thank you very much for this information. It seems that we are rapidly running out of time, although we do have quite a few questions and answers. We will have to revert to those later. We will pick all the questions related to the fourth call in our clarification notes, and we will also contact you directly to provide you with the answers. As said before, you are still welcome to submit your questions at any time to our email address. But last and not least, you will be provided with a link to the documentation of the webinar by email. For more information on the NAMA facility and to register for the NAMA facility newsletter, please do visit our website. So thank you all for your participation and for your questions. We wish you all a pleasant day.